Hey everyone, this is Mike Matsuno. Welcome back to the Man in Japan channel. It's been a while since I've been on. Just wanted to apologize that I kept putting it off, got a little busy, but I just wanted to check in and just give you an update on what's going on in the summer as well as what happened in the spring. So, as I always ask, if any of you are out there and can hear me, is the audio okay? And is the syncing from my mouse, the video, and the audio okay for you? So, if any of you could comment, write in the comments, it'd be much appreciated just to give me an idea of how the audio, especially, is coming across. I haven't done live stream since I left Hawaii. That was back in the end of March. And I had intended to do a live stream when I got back, but there wasn't anything really going on when I returned at the end of March. And so what happened was I was just kind of waiting, as we all were, for the cherry blossoms. And I had some friends, a group came over, and I took them around. And I had another visitor coming in on Golden Week, so I got a little bit busy with visitors. But the whole point was everyone was waiting for the cherry blossoms to bloom. And they eventually did bloom, and I did a couple of shorts. Some of you may have seen my on my shorts. I've done a couple, two or three, about the cherry blossoms blooming in Japan. So that's what had happened, and so I was kind of busy. Okay, thank you, J-Star. Okay, audio and video is good. Great, great. So I haven't done this in a while, so I'm a little bit out of touch, out of sync on what to hit and what to touch again. You don't, as I get older, but you also realize is that to remember all the things involved in making a video or doing a live, and whether it's the sound or it's anyway, just to let you know. Thank you very much, J Star. So I came back. So the cherry blossoms bloomed, and this year they had a record number of tourists that came through to see the cherry blossoms, and it was super, super crowded. So in my videos, I had said that if you come to see the cherry blossoms, maybe one day you go and see the famous sites, whether it's Kyoto or Nara. But if you can, it's best to go outside of the main areas, because everywhere in Japan, in that region, is blooming at the same time. So if you, like, say in Kansai, you could go off to maybe Shiga, or maybe down to Wakayama, and you could see cherry blossoms there. You just don't know where exactly it is, and so that you have to do some work on the internet to find out. But I highly recommend going to outlying areas to see the cherry blossoms, which are more peaceful and more quiet. If you come into Kyoto or Osaka, yes, it's beautiful. Yes, you get to see it with the backdrop of the temples and everything, but it is really crowded. And this year is exceptionally, was not only during cherry blossom, but I took a friend around during Golden Week, and when it was Golden Week, it was everywhere was just packed, and it was warm. So you got it wasn't like summer hot, but it was hot. So it was a bit uncomfortable, and with the crowds, and I guess I was spoiled because when COVID or Corona was here, you could move anywhere easily, and even getting like a ticket on the train or the Shinkansen train, you didn't have to wait, and you could always get a seat. Now you have those lines that are, out of Kyoto Station that are super long. Yes, you could go to the machines, as I have talked about before, the machines that has the English translation, and you buy it from the machine. But as I said, I never use those machines because the English is a little strange, and the system is still a Japanese system, meaning you have English words, but it's you got to jump a lot more hoops, and sometimes it's confusing. And if you get stuck and you get people waiting behind you, people are getting upset. And Kyoto Station, they don't even have a representative there to like from JR to help you. A lot of stations, like when I was in Fukuoka or even Hokkaido, there's someone there that can help. So I don't understand, and maybe because in Kyoto Station, it's like they don't have to worry about people coming, that there's no competition, that they just let it go. But it's really sad because that's where the need is the most, is because there's so many people in Kyoto Station. So anyway, oh, Hello, OCM. Thanks. Oh, Auntie Connie, my Auntie Connie. Hi, Auntie Connie. I hope you're feeling better. I know you have some nerve pain. I hope you're doing well. And my cousin Cheryl, thanks for joining us today. So, if you have any comments or questions about what's going on, I may not be able to answer it, but at least I can go over it. Please write it in the comment section. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Matsuno, and I do a Man in Japan channel. I try to talk about some updates of what's going on in Japan, some things from my perspective. I've been in Japan over 30 years. I'm Japanese American, fourth generation. I'm originally from Hawaii, and so I try to give you, I wouldn't say a different, but more unique perspective. I think that other people maybe, well, they can, but I think I have a good idea of it after being here for 30 years, right? So first, just a personal update is that so I came back. I took a couple of groups around. I did go through Golden Week, visited places. Everywhere is super crowded. I was exhausted from just the crowds. A place like Kyoto, down in Kyoto City, Nishiki Market, which is famous, Nishiki Fish Market. Everybody used to go there. I don't know why there's a fish market in the middle of Kyoto when Kyoto is kind of almost landlocked except for the far north. But a lot of people go there. They want to try seafood. They want to try. A lot of people make videos and YouTube videos and shorts about it. But to be honest, my opinion was it wasn't that good. It was very crowded and almost overpriced. In my eyes, it's almost like a tourist trap. And again, that's my personal opinion. So, it's still nice to go. It's still good to see. And it's the only fish market in Kyoto. So if you want to see something, and there's shops along the way, but it was just really crowded and it's very narrow and tight, right? So, and prices were not cheap, like, little skewers of fish, or uni was maybe 2,500 yen, and I tried it. Someone had it and I tried it, and it wasn't that good. So I still say tsukiji is better, but even tsukiji is becoming like that too, right? So again, the more you are more adventurous and you can go off to the outside of the main areas who have fish markets down in maybe Ibaraki or wherever, I think it's a better bet to go out there and just see what it really is like, instead of seeing so many tourists and the prices are high. And just I guess it can't be helped because Japan this year has the most tourists probably ever they'll probably have, and that's really a good thing for Japan. However, it affects the local people. There's a lot of complaints. There's problems with foreigners not misbehaving or littering or smoking in the wrong places, eating while walking. They got a lot of signs that say don't walk and eat. But then again, the problem is if they're selling street food and you're eating, you can't just stand there, right? I mean, they're gonna block traffic again. So they haven't figured it out yet. Few places have a little enclave or a place that you can sit or even stand to eat. That'd be nice. But very few places, like on the Nishiki Market Street, you gotta go in if you want to sit down and drink, and that's more serious type of eating or drinking. But you can't just buy food along the way like you like to and then eat and walk, because you're not supposed to do that. And then if you got the stick, the skewer, there's no garbage cans around, so you got to carry it. So be sure to carry like a plastic bag, like we always say, and be careful when you put it in a plastic bag because it pokes a hole in it, and if it's sticky, it can make other things sticky. So anyway, that's just kind of the update on tourism in Japan. So, like, I know my sister is coming in September, and she's bringing my cousin in a group, and they're hitting the off the beaten path, whether it's in Nagano or up to Kanazawa. I highly suggest for those of you who have done the Silk Route, the main route, Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Nara, maybe Hiroshima, then the next step would be to go more into off the beaten tracks, just outside. Kanazawa would be a nice place, maybe Ibaraki, maybe Shizuoka. And then for those of you who have done that, maybe go one step further, and that would be like Shikoku or South Kyushu, or places that most people wouldn't go. Saying, that's the Shimane area, the northern on the Japan Sea. Hokuriku. Even though Toyama and Niigata have gotten a lot of and Kanazawa have gotten a lot of PR recently, I still think it's still. I lived there for 2 years. It's still one of the best kept secrets of Japan. I don't know how Toyama, where I lived, made the top 50, I think, in the New York Times in the world. I don't even know how it got there, because Toyama is beautiful, but it doesn't have anything that is an outstanding landmark or site. So hard to say, you know what, but good for Toyama. And the Shinkansen comes through there now, so from Tokyo, right? And the Shinkansen still does not come all the way down to Kyoto. They're still talking about, you know, connecting it, and there's a lot of, you know, if you have to change to the, I don't know if it was the the Thunderbird Raicho or what, but you have to change somewhere to a regular train. But I don't know. That's still going on, up for grabs right now. So another thing that I do every year is called Ningen Doku, and that's like the comprehensive health checkup. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've had some friends, a cousin, a couple of friends who have come to Japan, and another group, my pickleball friend, I think it was Stacy, I think they went to Korea for a comprehensive body check. You know, this is what they don't do in America, which I always wondered why, because you'd want to, you know, I would thought insurance companies would want you to catch, you know, or find things early before it happens. And then you have the other side of the argument. The doctors always argue that, you know, that's like over testing, or you might get a false positive. And I'm always thinking too, yeah, you might, but the chances of you getting something and finding it is much more important, even if you got a false negative. You know what I mean? I mean, again, I don't know enough, but that's what a lot of the doctors say. But anyway, I have been doing the comprehensive body check called Ningen Doku for the last, since maybe 2007. So almost 20 years. Initially, I started doing it in Thailand, in Bangkok, because Bangkok, you know, like Bangkok Hospital and Bumamgrad, you know, they're considered to be two of the best medical tourist hospitals in all of Asia. And so when I was traveling a lot, I would come through and I do a day where I would have, it's done in half a day, that I would get a comprehensive check, and you would get the results by the end of your 3 or 4 hour, you know, checkup as you go through all the different tests. Well, back in 2014, one of the teachers that I had hired for our Japanese program, her husband was the head of the new Suita Tokushikai hospital that had just started. And she asked if I would be interested in going there for a comprehensive medical check. And I said, oh, you know, I had been to Japanese hospitals before 2014, and they were like old and run down, and you had to wait like hours, you know, because it's social medicine, right? Well, she said, well, why don't you go and take a look? So I go, and this hospital was really, when I was amazed. It was like American style. It was like, wow, it was big and huge, and new you know, the machines and the CT scan, and all the machines are really nice. And I thought, yeah, I'll try. And so that's where I started going in 2014. And after going there, I started to go every year in Japan, because they brought the price down. So in the end, because I'm on the Japan system, although you pay out of pocket for that special comprehensive check, it's still cheaper than what someone who does not have social insurance in Japan would pay. So I pay about $500, and that includes a CT scan of my heart. So normally it's probably somewhere around $400. You add in the extra scan. So $500 to get a complete check. Whereas in Thailand, initially it was like $250, and then it got up to I think it was up to $400. But it didn't include endoscopy, a stomach camera. We call it stomach camera, e-camera. And that, I thought, was in Japan, it's required as part of their health checkup, because I guess stomach cancer is the highest, the most common kind of cancer in Japan. So it's required. You know, and before in Japan, you do barium test or the stomach camera. Of course, the stomach camera is the best way, and you don't have to do the barium and then feel sick and then do the x-ray. But again, doing an endoscopy too, you have to be, you know, knocked out. You don't have to be, but I get knocked out and things. But anyway, so my point is that this was a thing that had started in the 1950s now in Japan. They were the first ones to do this. And it's called ningen, human being, doku actually. But in English, that's dock, D-O-C-K. And the reason it's dock, it's like a ship that comes in to dock and then what is it? When they bring it out to fix it and to check it and everything. So the idea was human dock or human, like repair. You come up to get checked out. That's where it started early in the middle 1950s. And in Japan, they made it a law that all universities and companies are required to have a health checkup system for all of their employees. But the checkup system that this is called, it's kind of confusing. It's called Kenshin, same name, health checkup, but it's the baby version. So maybe I did the $500 version. This version is, it would cost the company 5,000 yen a person, maybe. So maybe one tenth or, So it's very, basic, but still it's a checkup, x-ray and some blood tests and things. But anyway, so there's two types you can do. If you work for a company or school, you can do the school's one, and that's free because it does. But it's still the baby version versus the more extensive version, which is you pay out of pocket. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go all around, but I wanted to explain that Japan started this system, and they were always doing it, but nobody paid attention. And I always thought when I was doing it in Bangkok and even in Japan, I wonder why. They never do it in America. You would think insurance companies would want to do it. They don't want to pay for big, like when they find cancer or something or treatment or something so late. So why would you then, why wouldn't you have it? I still don't know why they don't do it. A lot of doctors oppose it and they said, oh, you might get the false negative, false positive or whatever. But I still think if you look at everything, that it's a great idea. In fact, one of my cousin's friends who came on one of those medical tourists to, I think, Japan or Korea, they found that she had pancreatic cancer. So she probably wouldn't have found out until too late if she lived she lives in the United States. So again, there's a lot of plus to that. So anyway, I went to that. It takes about half a day. After it's all done, and I do the endoscopy at the end. So I do all the blood tests, I do the blowing, I do the the electric heart cardiogram. I don't really know the names, I'm sorry. And then at the end, I do the endoscopy. And I always tell them to knock me out. I said, please, give me the maximum, because I don't want to feel any pain, right? And you get the choice of the mouth or the nose. And I can't imagine it. Can you imagine having it through the nose? And even if you had some aesthetic, some people do it without anesthesia or just enough to go through and they're awake and it goes through their nose and down. I remember there's one hospital I was visiting during Corona when I was working for the hospital, right? The headquarters of this hospital. And I went to one of the hospitals and they said, oh, Corona, we have to be very strict. We cannot do the endoscopy through the mouth anymore, only through the nose. So I said, what, you don't have a choice? They said, no choice. And we don't use anesthetic except for the one initially here. And I'm going, who's going to do it, right? I mean, they're trying to get more people to do this ningen doku. And I said, who's going to do that? Anyway, I don't know what happened with that. But anyway, so they knocked me out. And so you're a little groggy. And then they have the recovery room, usually 30 minutes. I end up sleeping. I get up a little groggy, but then I go for the final consultation. And then they show me on the screen, the computer screen, they show me my results. They give me a copy of my results. And because I've been going to the same place every year, they can track and they can say in the last 3 years, this is what has happened. So I can see how it's gone. Then 2 weeks later, they send you this, and this just came in a few days ago. And basically it's really interesting. It's because they give you like this, here, it's the BMI markers. They do that thing where the machine just goes boom on your head and it's able to see how much, your BMI, how much fat you have, etc., etc. And then they give you like the report card and it has here. And happily and surprisingly, my report card was very good. I had mostly A's, a few B's, and 3 C's. Whereas before, 3 years ago, if you look at this, I had mainly C's. And so that shows that thanks to intermittent fasting and low carbohydrate diet and exercising, that everything has really, really vastly improved. But because I do this every year, I'm able to really see my progress, whether it's up or down. But my point is that this is the new thing, it seems, especially Hawaii people are now starting to go to Korea and to Japan for this Ningen Doku. And the prices are much higher, of course. Maybe it's like 1,000, 1,500. I don't know. I didn't ever look into it because I do it here. But so some of you might be interested in doing this comprehensive body check. In Japan, it's called Ningen Doku. Other places, basically, they have packages. They call it health comprehensive check. Sometimes they call it premium. They have all different kinds of names. You have to kind of, go through it to find out what is the what package you want. There's one for women. There's one for men. There's age 30 to 50 and 50 and over and 60 and over. It's all kind of designed. Good marketing, of course. I still think that Bangkok is hospital and Bumrungrad is probably the best because their doctors, most of them go overseas to be trained and then they come back and they work in those private hospitals, as well as I thought their English was the best. I don't know about Korea, but in Japan, most of the doctors don't speak. And so if you don't speak, well, the ones that do host like the Hawaii medical tourists, of course, they have translators, I'm sure, and things. So you have a translator with you, which is not the same as talking to the doctor, but still, it will suffice, right? But again, this is the new thing, and I think it's going to catch on. Now, like with Hawaii people, not many people know Thailand, or it seems like still too far away. It's a little farther and kind of scary. Oh, third world country, you have to be careful or whatever. But I still think they're the best. But anyway, at least if you're going to Korea or Japan, that's the new thing called Ningen Doku. So anyway, sorry for the long talk, but this is the new thing that's going to start happening, I think. More people, at least from Hawaii and maybe the West Coast, I believe, are going to start going to Japan or Korea or Thailand or Asia for medical tourists to find out if there's anything going on with them. And I think that if you catch anything early, whereas a lot of times in the United States, you don't find out until it's too late or it's kind of serious and then you got to go through that major treatment. $500 a year, that's your investment. Especially once you get past 60, I think it's a good idea. But of course, you got to fly there, right? That's the problem. But make it a vacation. Maybe you can go Japan 1 year, go to Korea next year, go to Bangkok the final year, and then Oh, another thing that they give you is that, so, Another thing they give you, and they give you this at Bangkok also, is they give you a CD. The CD has my X-ray and my CT scan of my heart, my chest area. So this I could take to the next medical tourist place if I was going to another place, or my own personal doctor if I was not from Japan, and they could see the results. So you get the final report and you get the results on the CD. I know you're going to be saying, who does CDs, right? Well, only in Japan. CDs and fax machines still exist. But anyway, so I consider this a great idea, man. This is a great idea. And Bangkok has been one of the leaders. But Japan has jumped in and they're trying. But, the problem for Japan is language and not enough. They need translators and, not enough. I know a lot of Chinese, wealthy Chinese come to Japan for medical tourism. And that was a target of the company I was working for before. Anyway, thank you. Oh, Yaneth Tabar, thank you, Yaneth, for joining us. Welcome. If you have any questions, please let me know. What else is going on? Heat wave, having a major heat wave. You know what's interesting? I always talk about the rainy season, right? Like it doesn't exist that much, or it's sometimes they have what is called karatsuyu. Karatsuyu means like kind of a dry, rainy season where it doesn't rain that much. Well, this year, it didn't start until really late. It was like middle of June or after that it started, and then it was really strange weather we had. It would like rain, stop, rain, and then it just was gone. I would say by the end of June, last week, it stopped, and then I was checking, and then they wouldn't give you the final confirmation, but now I look back and it says, yeah, about June 27th they said that the rainy season stopped. But and that's why now we're like in summer. So we had a miniature rainy season, which is good, I guess, but now we have summer. And so this week in Kansai, this area where I live, is up in the 35 to 30. So basically in Fahrenheit, that's 95 to 99 degrees roughly. So 35 to 37 Celsius. It's super hot and humid. Humidity is in the area between 75 and 80%. So you can imagine how uncomfortable that is and how hot. And as always in Japan, people are dying because a lot of the older people, they don't want to use the air conditioning. And I had talked about this before, is that long ago when I first came to Japan over 30 years ago, people didn't use the air condition. Now, I don't know if it was less hot. I'm guessing it wasn't as hot as it is now, but we had a fan, that's all. I still remember my friend Yoshi. I lived at Yoshi's house. He had the old style air condition, and I would turn it on and then turn it off and go to sleep with the windows shut, everything. Well, 2 or 3 hours later, I wake up just drenched, right? And I would turn it on and then turn it off. But sometimes I'd forget and leave it on. But because everybody was with just fans and leaving the doors open, what would happen is that it would be so noisy, I would disturb the neighbors. And I remember Yoshi telling me, oh, Mike, you can't keep it on. And it was hard to remember. Those days, they didn't have like timers or, like this kind of, more modern type. It was the old noisy types, using the ones that goes, ah. So again, with the so older people are used to not using the air condition, and a lot of them go to sleep without it, and they die of heat stroke or heat exhaustion or something related to the high temperature and humidity. And so now on television, it's funny because before they would never say use the air condition. And another thing that was people believed was you're not supposed to leave the air conditioner on all night because you would get like sick, like pneumonia. They had this belief. I don't know where it started from, but pneumonia. So more so people wouldn't use it. People now, older people like to use timers, but imagine in 2 or 3 hours, it's going to get really hot, right? They usually have the timer and then they have the fan going and then the air condition kicks off and they have just the fan, but that's usually not enough. So again, people are dying. It's really hot. And now on the news, every night they say, use your air conditioning, which is really, and they say, okay, if you're worried about it's too cold or cost, keep it at 28. I think 28 is what, 75, what, 76? Anyway, 28 degrees centigrade, which is still very warm, but I guess that's kind of the bar mark. But so we're in for a very hot summer. And so any of you who are thinking of coming in the summer, if you can change it, I would say don't come in the summer, because I always say it's the worst season to come. The only place to go in Japan in the summer is where? Hokkaido, right? Hokkaido will still get up to like, 32, 33 sometimes, but it's more of a dry heat. So it's much different. So in that case, it's much more comfortable. And it's, although I also said when I was in Hokkaido working, older hotels, if you get a cheaper, older business hotel, there's no air conditioning. So it's only fan, they call it air conditioning, but it's actually just air blowing in from the outside, right? So again, you also have to be careful. If you stay at a nice hotel, a 4-star hotel, no problem. But there are many buildings in Japan that still have only one system. The university where I teach at now is the same. They have the option to go both ways, I know. And now I can see on the switch, they can. But for the longest time, they wouldn't let you turn on the air condition. You could only have like heat or fan. And that was until maybe a couple of weeks. It wasn't until, it was recent that you couldn't do it. And so the room was super hot. So finally now they've allowed air conditioning. I can see the function on the thing. But it doesn't go below 24. 24 is the lowest. There's like a lock on it. They don't want it, they don't want you to waste electricity, I guess. So in Japan, it's still this idea that you have to endure, or there's like a line that you're not supposed to waste beyond this. So there's still that type of thinking, and that's why the heat has been very extreme to a lot of people. Any questions out there? If you have any questions, anything you want to ask about? Sorry, I went off about that, but yeah, I think this Ningen Doku thing is a great idea, and leave it to the Japanese. They figured it out, man, back in the 1950s, right? Now, a lot of people have been asking about Expo, right? And Expo, I'm sorry, I have not gone. Just to give you my perspective is, it was never really advertised that well or promoted that well. It was kind of last minute, kind of thrown together because they were behind and delayed. And so even the locals or a lot of the foreigners who live in Japan, the residents, a lot of them haven't gone. There doesn't seem to be that interest. There's more interest with people overseas coming to see the Expo. Now, you get mixed reviews. You get some who said that it's not that great. Now, those people who usually say it's not that great are those who have been to like the Dubai 4 years ago. I guess the Dubai one was amazing, right? When you compare it to Dubai, there wasn't any, it looked much not as good as the one in Dubai. So, but like my sister from Hawaii, her boss went to the one in Osaka and he was really impressed. So it really is depending on what your background, it's all relative, right? What you compare to, what you've seen before, what you expect, right? But anyway, manage your expectations that it's not supposed to be like, wow, but it's supposed to be very interesting with high tech and different things. Medical technology was supposed to be more of the center. I don't know how much they've done at that. The problems is the complaints were like overcrowding, weather was hot, and when it was raining, during rainy season, people needed umbrellas because it's outside. So it was like the weather and overcrowding. So, and I wouldn't go in the summer. So, maybe in the fall, September, October, if you're coming, it might be a good time to go. By then, I think the rush would have been over and it might be a good time to go. I might go if I get a chance to go in the fall when it's a little cooler. But anyway, mixed reviews. But I heard a lot of good things also. So it's really up to you. You can go on YouTube and you can see what people have said about it. But I think that if you've never seen an Expo, it probably is something good to see. The last one in Osaka was back in when I was 6th grade. And the reason I know is because my teacher in 6th grade, Mrs. Endo, Mrs. Myrtle, her name was Myrtle Endo. I remember, it's funny, 6th grade, right? How many hundreds of years ago is that? She had took off a week, came to the Expo in Osaka, and came back and told us all about it. And I still remember her being so impressed. She said there was so many people, but she was so impressed. And it was beautiful. And I remember her telling me. And so that year, 6th grade, we did an Expo, like little groups. We made little groups and each of us took a country and we made like a mini Expo in the classroom. And we invited parents. My mom came, I remember. And we invited like the next door students to come and see. And I remember I was China. And so I made the stamp. You made a on wood block. You put like rubber from the tire. You cut it out. And I remember mine said, I think I still have it. I found it when I was going through my things last year. China, land of many people. And it's written in, like that. And you could put it in ink and stamp. But yes, the earlier Expo made a big impression on me, and that's thanks to Mrs. Endo, my 6th grade teacher who went to the first one, came back. I hope this one is as impactful for many people as it was for Mrs. Endo, who then impacted or influenced me. But again, I haven't been there yet, and I do hope to go if I can. Another thing is, it was kind of expensive at the beginning, but now I think that the prices, they did let a lot of local elementary or maybe junior high school students go in for free. They gave a lot of free tickets out too, so that was really good. So a lot of the people in the maybe the education field maybe were able to take their students, which is really good. I think something really interesting to see. So, CUBE students here. Okay, good. CUBE, thank you, Akaleo. Thank you. Any questions in the comments? If not, I'm gonna keep moving on. But anyway, Expo, mixed reviews. But if you get a chance, I think I would go. It's only once every 4 years, and I don't think it's going to be in Japan again for the next 30, 6, 12, 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, it was in Osaka the first time, right? So now, who knows when it's gonna come back, if it is, and it cost a lot of money to build, and it's not, like they always say, Olympics, they lose money. I think with this kind of project too, they probably lose money. A couple of things you probably already heard is that right now everybody wants to climb Mount Fuji, right? And everybody tells me, I want to climb Mount Fuji. My friend Jeff's brother Nathan, that's his dream, right? And when I was a student, when I first came, ryugakse, I climbed Mount Fuji because we did, which we were crazy because we were young and dumb. We had like a day, not even a day, but we were trying to get to the top and down. And to get up, it's like, I don't know how many hours, 7, 8 hours, maybe more. And coming down is maybe 4 or 5, but we had only a certain amount of time. And when we hit the 10th level, I think there's 10, 11, and then I think the top, it started snowing. And all we had was like a sweatshirt. I had a Beta Theta Pi sweatshirt, and I was climbing with some of the fraternity guys, and we were trying to get. So I never made it to the top. I made it to the 11th, I think, section, and then when it started snowing and the temperature started dropping, I had to turn around. The only person who continued and was ready was, I forgot his name, but he was our counselor. He had a down jacket, and he was climbing. He made it to the top, although he couldn't see anything because it was snowing. So that's another thing. You get to the top and you can't see anything. What's the point, right? But I guess it's just to say you did it. So anyway, a lot of people are climbing. It was overrun, overcrowded, and so now you have to get permits, and they're much stricter on regulation. I don't know what it costs, 2,000 yen. I can't remember what it was, but now you have to pay, and you can go. And there's 4 routes, I guess, and they're all open right now, and they're being regulated. My question to a lot of people, and I brought this up, I think, in a live before, is that why don't people climb other mountains? There's so many mountains. I mean, Japan is 75% or more mountainous, so they got a lot of mountains, the Alps, Hokkaido, but for whatever reason, because Mount Fujisan is the icon, it's the symbol of Japan, right? It's the landmark, it's the heart, the soul of Japan. Everybody wants to climb Mount Fuji, but there's, like I said, there's the 3 mountains of the gods. Fuji is one of them, Tateyama and Haku. You could climb the other ones, like Tateyama is a nice hike. I mean, a good climb. I mean, I did it with my 2 friends, Masaki and Sue, and we didn't know. Same thing, hard and not easy, but it was a beautiful climb. So there are a lot of mountains in Japan. You don't have to climb Fujisan, but if I think it's a National Heritage, National Heritage Center location right now. And so everybody wants to climb Fujisan. So they do have they regulate it, and they're quite strict. Another thing that came up, which was interesting, was I ride a bicycle, right? I don't have a car. I ride a bicycle everywhere. They just implemented these new bicycle rules about being really, really strict. They got like, this is so Japan, right? They have these rules. I think they were like, I can't remember exactly, but there must have been like 25 or 30 about bicycle new laws that you cannot be, I guess, texting and riding a bicycle. You cannot use an umbrella. And that was the biggest for me, because when you ride in the rain, I use the clear plastic umbrellas and I ride. So I can see where I'm going. I got one hand only, yes, but I'm riding like this, right? If I cannot use the umbrella, what are you supposed to do? You just got to put on rain gear and get wet, right? So I'm going to keep riding. Well, don't tell the police this, but until I get a warning, because I can't see that that's a fair thing to do, because I can see I'm riding with a clear umbrella and it's covering me, but without it, especially if I'm going to work or some formal place, can't be like wearing rain gear and getting wet, right? I don't know. So, but there's like 25 different rules. Maybe it's eating and riding the wrong way and riding on the road and on and on and on. So if you're going to ride a bicycle in Japan, be sure you know the rules and be sure you know what you can be fined for. I think they're going to start getting strict from the end of this year or the beginning of next, I guess. Maybe now it's a warning. I'm not exactly sure. But just be aware that riding on the bicycle. Oh, another thing is like riding a bicycle drunk, right? That was always the gray area, right? You never drive a car and drink. For heaven forbid you did that. You would lose your license, be thrown in jail. So that, of course, was a given. But the gray area was the bicycle. They said you're not supposed to ride, and this is what, 15 years ago, I remember they came on the news and said, you're not supposed to drink and ride the bicycle. You got to push the bicycle, right? Yeah, we all laughed, ha ha ha, yeah. Like how fast can we go? And, when we drunk, well, I guess you could go fast. But so 15 years later, now drinking and driving was I think it was a pretty hefty fine. I don't know if it was 10,000 yen or 50. I can't remember exactly. But they're very strict about that. But still, what are you supposed to do, right? If I live 1.5 kilometers from the station, I ride the bicycle there. I push it back. I guess that's what they expect. But, geez, I'm not going fast. And I always think like it's my responsibility. I'm not going to hurt anybody riding a bicycle. But again, who knows, right? So that's a new thing. There are 30 different laws about riding a bicycle in Japan. The helmet is also a law, but that one they can't push because they have to make everybody buy. I do wear a helmet now, of course, but again, helmet is also a rule. So it's hard to say how they're going to enforce the rules, but just to let you know that they are doing that. Okay. Other thing that's been happening in Japan is that rice shortage. Yeah, funny, right? Japan, rice shortage they have. The price of rice has doubled. So what used to be $25 a bag is now $50. And so there's all kinds of things going on. Well, the reasons are normally the Japanese government tells the farmers not to grow too much rice because to keep the price stable. Well, what has happened is that the last 2 years there was a less yield of rice, so that made it kind of tight. And then it's the tourism. The international tourists coming in, so many of them, right? Was it 4 million? I can't remember exactly. 40 million? I have the data somewhere. But let's say even for April, 1 month, 2020, you got 765,000 from China, 721,600, from Korea. Taiwan is over 500,000. From Asia alone, I was looking at this here. Just in the month of April, there's so many people. Of course, they're eating rice, right? Because that's what you eat in Japan, sushi or nigiri. So that has also has created a shortage of rice. So then the government, of course, jumps in, right? It's okay, we have stockpiles, we have to give them out. Japanese style, though, right? The first minister who was in charge of this, I don't know if it's the agriculture minister or one of the ministers, he said something silly. And this always happens. The politicians are most of them are out of it. They're not even connected to the real world. He said something like, oh, I don't know about, because people were complaining that the rice price was high and they wanted to get either the government to use their stockpiles or something. And he goes, oh, this is what he said. Something to the effect of, oh, I don't know anything about the price of rice because I never buy rice. All my constituents, all his people from his prefecture, whatever, they give him rice. So the regular person is saying, what? You are saying you get rice free, and so you don't know anything about the rice price or our problems, and you're the rice minister or in charge of the rice, the minister in charge of rice? Well, he had to resign instantly. And then Koizumi came on, the son. I can't remember if it's Junichiro. I don't know. Anyway, his father, Koizumi, was the one who made the major change of the post office from public to private. That was a huge thing that he did back around 2000, I think it was. And this is his son. And his son is the new player in the game. And he became in charge of the rice. And he started really moving things around and releasing stockpiles. And, he's getting all the press, and he's everywhere and trying to set up a system. At least he's trying to do something. So there are stockpiled rice now being sold at discounted rates in Japan. And the taste, I guess, is probably pretty much the same, I guess. Anyway, people are waiting. Like sometimes, they only can distribute so many to different markets, and not everybody gets it, and different prefectures don't get it. If you're a rice producing prefecture, you may not get it until a couple months, and it's just kind of crazy. But the rice, the stockpiled rice is, people are waiting. Maybe 50 bags. People are waiting from like 4 o'clock in the morning for 9 o'clock rice. I mean, when they open. It's like, people are willing to wait for the rice to save, 2,000 yen, $20 roughly, right? So that's what's going on right now, and they're working on the rice shortage, and Koizumi is doing his best. I think that he's smart though, because if he ever wants to be, of course he wants to be prime minister one day, this will really get him in his name in the press. He's getting it every day. And if he saves this and people are happy with what he does, imagine, he saved the rice. I mean, he made rice cheaper. He brought about, reform within, that's what he's working on, reforming the whole rice system, because it's archaic, right? It would really help him, and maybe one day he will be prime minister. You can bet, I would bet on it, that he will one day be prime minister. So the other thing that I was watching this morning was they all have the debate of the different politicians, because there's a big election coming up, right? All the different factors. And the biggest thing that's up is that declining population, right? Declining population, and how to have young people, families have more children. That has never worked in the past, right? So, hey, Masaki, thanks for joining me. Thank you. Helmets. Oh yeah, helmets. I'm sorry, I'm going to the comments now. Helmets is a law, and thank you, J-Star. But that one they can't really push. Akaleo, give me a score. I'll give you a score of 100 for being on this show. Thank you, Akaleo. Thanks, Masaki, for joining. Anyway, just to continue on, is that the declining population is the reason that Japan, in every aspect, is starting to really struggle. I'm teaching at a good university, at least it was very well known before. And what has happened is I taught 4 years ago at the same university before I entered the company, and I'm teaching that again, almost the same level. But the level of the student has gone down quite a bit. And it's obvious to me that universities, there's like 750 plus, right, universities in Japan. And I believe they only need like 450. But of course, you can't get, the Ministry of Education can't just cut universities off from any kind of funding or help. So they continue on with that system. But that means that there's not enough students to go into other universities. They call it TANE, right? TANE means the minimum number of students they have that allows them to survive and gets, I think it's government support. Well, so what happens is the net that was like this, to let only this much fish come in, or this many students come in, is then open. And now I'm sure it's pretty much wide open. Anybody can get in. So pretty much, as long as you have the money, you can get into university in Japan, or at least somewhere along the line. And even at the better schools, whether it's Tokyo University or Kyoto or Keio or Waseda, now lesser ability students who don't have the same ability as in the past can get into higher universities because of this declining birth rate. And that's also affecting the job market, and it's like not enough people, short staff, on and on and on. Japan doesn't know what to do. They're debating, right? Every Sunday morning, there's this huge NHK debate where they bring on different people to speak, and then it's actually well done, I think. Well, today it was all the politicians from representing the different parties, and so they had them, talking about. But they have all kinds of ideas. But I think the key is, they still are talking about letting in more foreigners, which I believe that's the only solution. You're not going to have more people having more babies. I mean, or more, it's that's not going to work. You might have a slight increase, right? But you remember, right, that the previous minister of increasing childbirth was a guy, and I remember, what was his name? Trevor, the comedian. He talked about this on his show where the minister put on like a pillow or something that was the weight of I think it was an expecting mother, and he walked around for a day or I don't know how long, so he would have the empathy to know what it's like. I mean, I don't know if that's the best way to figure it out, like, but again, that's the kind of thinking that's going on. So of course, I don't think it's ever going to change. So let more foreigners in, right? But again, there's that whole thing of like, with the whole idea of, sakoku and, uchi and soto, in and out, and keeping, everything separate. Japan doesn't want to let more foreigners in. They need the workers, but they don't want to let too many foreigners in. But they're going to have to do that, and it's about the visa. They've changed the visa process so many times to kind of code it, like where you can come in for 3 or 5 years. Maybe you can extend it to 10 years. All these things to get people to come in. The problem also for Japan is if you're like from the Philippines or maybe from Malaysia and you speak English, or even in Vietnam, if you don't, where a lot of people have studied English, if you have to come as a foreigner to Japan, you have to know Japanese. So you gotta normally have, at least a working ability, or come here and study. Whereas if you speak some English, or like in Malaysia or Philippines, they speak English, why wouldn't they go to like Hong Kong or Singapore or America or Canada to work if they could? Because so Japan's attraction, one, it's not pay anymore. You can make more money in other countries, usually hour per hour. So, and then on top of that, you got to learn Japanese. Who's going to come? It's getting less and less and less. So even even if they're very strict with letting in foreign workers, the foreign workers are starting to look elsewhere. So Japan is really digging a hole, and I don't know what they're going to do to resolve this. They can't rely just on tourism numbers. That has helped, re-inject into the local communities. And the local businesses. However, even with the injection into the local, businesses, that has created other problems, right? Overcrowded, services, not enough services, like garbage pickup, and all these different things. So that's what they're, working on. And so that's kind of everything that has happened, I think, in the last, not that much going on. What's interesting? In Japan, you watch the news. I watch NHK News, nightly. There's an English button you can put. So I usually, if I'm cooking, I'm going to listen in English because it's just easier. It's like kind of boring, right? Not much going on. Not like the United States, right? But you know what? Now with all the stuff going on in America and the constant bombardment of just crazy stuff and unbelievable thinking, and just, what? That really kind of bothers me, the sense of decency and honor and just being a good person still exists in Japan much more than in the United States now, I think. Overall, as far as, especially politically, people are just mean and cruel, and people don't care anymore. Yes, maybe there's some excess of this and that, but it doesn't mean you go and harm others or cut off people's livelihood or insurance or whatever it is. That much I still have to hand to Japan. There's still a sense of honor and a sense of decency. And I believe that they, in the end, as slow and frustrating for me as it is sometimes, that they will still do the right thing for the people. Whereas in the United States, I don't see that anymore, which is really disappointing for me. And it's really hard, being an American. And not to get into politics, but, speaking of politics, Trump is trying to force Japan to make an agreement, right? And at first, Japan was the first to jump into that, right? I think they went to Trump right away. They were figuring out that they could get him to be nice. And, the Japanese, I believe, my perspective, really want to work with the United States. They thought they had a friendly, good relationship, especially militarily and in various ways. But Trump basically changed all that. And he basically said, yeah, we're your friend, but you still got to pay whatever everybody else is paying. There was no like special treatment or special regard for being a close ally of the United States. And so I was so disappointed, and that's what Japan found out. I think they were shocked, honestly. They're sending that, I don't know his name, is it Akagawa, the person who's gone, the envoy, maybe 6 times already to the United States, and he's gotten pretty much nowhere. But during it, they all thought they were getting close to like he was saying, oh, one of the head guys of the trade, or what, there's like 3 of them, right? And there was news that just like when Nakasone and Reagan, they said, call me Ron, call me Yasu, my first name. They did the same thing. He says, oh yeah, we call each other by our first name now, or there's some kind of, they could tease nickname. They call each other by their nickname. And that was kind of like, whoa, like, making Japanese feel like, oh yeah, we're close to them. We're good friends, right? They don't get it. They're getting played by America all the way through. And now Trump is throwing, oh yeah, well, maybe we'll make it 70% tariffs or 35% tariffs. It's so sad. Japan really, I think they're shocked. How could America, do this after they've worked so closely, with the military, and even Japan holds, I think, isn't it their number 2? Or are they numbers? Yeah, I think they own the most U.S. bonds in the world, I think. So, poor Japan. The only thing that worked for Japan, I think, is that because they're so slow and take so long, I knew that they wouldn't make a quick deal. They were just hoping that Trump would say, okay, Japan, you're exempt, or we won't ask, we'll put the 25% automobile parts or whatever, we will exempt you or something. They never got that, of course. And now, because they're so slow, Trump is getting really upset and mad, right? Because he figured Japan was an easy mark. But he didn't understand that everything in Japan takes so long. And Japan was only hoping for an exemption, really, I think. They thought that they could get it. And because they couldn't get that, then it goes back to the regular system, which then takes so long. Like now, it's going to take long, months, maybe years, who knows. But I think it's better for Japan. Just wait to the end until he changes his mind again, or something happens again. Something will happen. So anyway, poor Japan, that's what I said. They really thought the United States was a good friend and they could really work together and they were very close, but they're getting played by the Trump administration. They're getting played bad, and being slow and consensus minded and all that actually works in their favor, I think, in this case. But anyway, so sad. Yes, J Star King Rat. Yeah, King Rat, right? When the rats start eating each other. That's a good book. I think it was James Clavell, King Rat. Great book to read. It tells you about human nature, right? What starts to happen. But anyway, to sum up everything is that overall Japan is struggling economically because, first, even though they had increases in pay and things, they're not having, and inflation is still high. Food has gone up since last year and the year before. I'm probably paying, 30 to 50% more. Like an apple used to be 128 yen. Now it's 250 to 300 for an apple. One apple. Not a pound, not a kilogram, one apple. And they're not that big. They're large, but not that big. So everything has gone up, and some pay has gone up, but Japan is still just stuck. And now with the tariffs still pending, it's going to hurt Japan's economy even more. So I don't expect the dollar and the yen rate to change very much. I don't think this year. I don't know again. Trump could do something. It could go send it either way. But so if you're interested in Japan, keep coming. Japan needs those dollars because they're struggling, and you can get a great deal, right? Again, it's the best deal in town, right? Japan. It's safe, it's unique and exotic to many. Good food, best service in the world, nice people, low crime, almost no crime or low crime. Just the negative side is a lot of people, overcrowded, but on this side, it has so many good things. My friend Todd, who we used to go to school together. Him and his partner spend every year, like I think in Thailand, and I think this year they went to Cambodia, and they stopped a few days in Tokyo. And he just wrote me today. He said, "Oh, we love Tokyo. We're gonna come back again." Yes, people love Japan. It has so much going for it. So please, if you are interested in, yes, maybe cherry blossom season is not the best season to come, but you can go to outlying areas. You can go down to Shikoku. You can go to Hokkaido and catch it later, right? But try to hit other areas. Speaking of Hokkaido, one last thing about Hokkaido. I remember, was it 25, 30 years ago? Masaki and his wife Sue and me, Masaki's on tonight, we went to Hokkaido. And that's when, it was over 35 years ago, I think, Hokkaido was still exotic. And even Japanese themselves didn't go there because it was expensive. The flight to Hokkaido, Sapporo, and between Tokyo and Hokkaido, I think was the most expensive in the world for that distance, I think it was. But anyway, we went for a week and it was so much fun. It was so great. It was, and finally now, 35 years later, people are finally going to Hokkaido. They found Hokkaido, probably in the last 10 years, I would say. They finally found Hokkaido. And so now they're they're going. And yes, I love Hokkaido. Like I said, if I were to move one more time, I would live in Hokkaido, even though it's kind of cold in the winter. But so Hokkaido is a great another option. Rainy season, no rainy season. Summer, fall, great times to go. Spring, late spring. Yes, winter, you might want to see the Yuki Matsuri or the winter festival. But outside of that, so there's Hokkaido. And there's Okinawa. Okinawa is just starting to come on the map. Now, the Okinawa card is always a little more difficult because if you plan a trip, they have typhoons. Like right now, it's typhoon season. There's always a typhoon around the corner. And sometimes you have to cancel or you might get stuck there and things. So you have to be a little more flexible if you're going to Okinawa. But Okinawa is great in the summer, It's warm, the water is cool. In the winter, it's still very nice most times, but it's a little too cold to swim for most people. Some tough people still swim, but it's usually, it's too cold. Rainy season is the only time you don't want to go to Okinawa because they have the real rainy season. It goes like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think even, it's long, maybe even a month sometimes. So again, why not come to Japan? Nicest people, best service, best deal in town, fire sale and everything for you, 30% off or whatever or more. Good food, exotic or unique for many. English is spoken, not to the degree of other tourist destinations like Bangkok or whatever, but still enough. And you never have to worry because it's safe. So why not Japan? And Japan needs you because they're struggling right now economically and they don't know what to do right now. They're kind of caught between China and the United States, and now with the Trump thing going on, it's changed the whole game for them. So I don't know how they're recalculating what they're going to do. And with the old mindset, it's really, really hard. They need young people like Koizumi and some others to come up. I always hope for Taro. What was his name? Kono Taro. Taro Kono, who studied at Georgetown for 4 years, who ran for prime minister, but because he's kind of an outsider, he may never win prime minister, but somebody like that, they need someone, new people coming in. And I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be my hope. Hi, Wally Bronson. Welcome back. Long time no see. Hey, Masaks. Yeah. Oh, I did. Reminded him of Oregon, right? Yeah, we had a great trip those times. When we were young, we traveled to many places. Like we did Tohoku also. When nobody was going to Tohoku, we did a Tohoku trip, camping trip. We did Hokkaido. We went down to Shizuoka, down in Odawara, I remember. But anyway, yeah, kudos to you, Masaks, for all the planning those trips. You and Sue, thank you very much. So I just want to say thank you for joining me. I hope to do more live streams. I apologize again. I was AWOL for the last 3 months. I have been teaching at Doshisha. As I said, the students are real different this year compared to 4 years ago at the same level. I have never struggled to teach a class as much as one of my classes, my lowest level class now. And every day I only think of how can I come up with better teaching materials or teach better, because I'm not reaching them. It's like they're in high school or junior high school and I cannot even get them to be quiet or stop speaking Japanese. It's really weird. I've never been in a classroom like that, and that's where I am now. So I know the overall level of the Japanese universities are going down, down, down. So even if Tokyo University, right, they offered, like when the thing happened with Trump and Harvard, Tokyo University was opening up the doors. It says, come to Tokyo University. Even Tokyo University, because of the way things are taught, and it's still more of a kind of a, memorize, learning, old style Japanese system, I wouldn't recommend Tokyo. I'd go somewhere else, Europe, or maybe Canada, or New Zealand, Australia. But again, it's sad that, and I see it because I'm teaching. I've taught over 30 years. I've never had as difficult a class as I'm teaching right now. And these are to 10 Japanese sophomores, 20 years old, who cannot keep their mouths quiet or pay attention for longer than a certain period. It's really, really hard. After I finish this, I'm going to go back and try to figure out new lessons for them. Anyway, it's only 3 more weeks, but geez, at my age, you thought by now I should be a master teacher. I thought I was a pretty good teacher until I met this class, right? And back to the comments. Yes, oh yeah, we did Sarushima with your sister, and camped out there. And anyway, so again, thank you for joining me. I hope to do more live streams as time comes up. Apologize for not being on it more. I will be as time goes on. And until next time, I want to thank all of you for joining me, and take care. Today, right now, it's 37 degrees, I think, in Kyoto Nabe. I got the air conditioning running up here, but the moment I get off this, I try to use the fan, save money, and I don't know, somebody says it's healthier, but anyway, have a great day, and thanks again, everyone. Take care and stay cool. Mike signing off from Kyoto Nabe, Japan. Thank you.